بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ما بعد. We stopped last week in the chapter of Sifat al-Salat, the description of the Salat. And we already did the takbir, the opening takbir, how the Salat starts. We did the raising the hands, where the hands go in Qiyam, the recitation of Al-Fatiha. And now we move on to a rukur, going into a rukur, the bowing position. So, قال رحمه الله ثم يرفع مكبرا رافعا يديه. Now we go into the rukur, the description of the rukur. After reciting Al-Fatiha and the short surah, or whatever surah it is that we recite, it says ثم يركع. A person goes into a rukur, bowing, and when going into a rukur, رافعا يديه, that a person raises their hands before going into rukur. The raising of the hands along with going into rukur. وَيَجْعَلُهُمَا عَلَى الرُّكْبَتَيْهِ مُفَرَّجَتَيْ الْأَصَابِعِ. And the hands in rukur go where? If I'm in rukur, if I'm bowing, the knees or the thighs? The knees. The hands go on the knees. The hands go on the knees in the rukur. Tayyib. And he describes the hands, the fingers, as he says, مُفَرَّجَتَيْ الْأَصَابِعِ. The hands are spread, the fingers are spread out, right? Not closed in rukur, but spread, the opposite of the takbir. The takbir, he said the fingers are together. In the rukur, on the knees, the fingers are spread apart. Tayyib. So going into rukur is a takbir with the raising of the hands. Okay? Due to the statement of Ibn Umar, Abi Hurairah radiallahu anhu, كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يكبر إذا قام إلى الصلاة. He used to make the takbir at the beginning of the salat. ثم يكبر حين يركع. Then he would say the takbir. The takbir is what? Allahu Akbar. He would say the takbir at the beginning of the salat, and then he would say the takbir, Allahu Akbar, حين يركع, when he wanted to go into rukur. طيب. رافع يديه. Because that hadith itself, which is in Bukhari and Muslim, spoke about the saying of the takbir. It didn't speak about what? It spoke about saying Allahu Akbar, right? It didn't talk about raising the hands. It said he would stand, he would say Allahu Akbar, not raising the hands. That has nothing to do. The takbir, the statement Allahu Akbar, and the raising of the hands are two separate things. That hadith discusses when to say Allahu Akbar, right? So hadith in Bukhari and Muslim. He said, عن أبي هريرة إذا قام إلى الصلاة, when he would stand for the salah, the opening takbir, Allahu Akbar, ثم يكبر حين يركع. Then he would say Allahu Akbar when he wanted to go into rukur. طيب, the statement Allahu Akbar. طيب, the other hadith discussing the raising of the hands is a statement of Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma. He said, رأيت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا استفتح الصلاة. If he began the salat, رفع يديه, he will raise his hands. So now the raising of the hands goes with, we use both hadiths, right? One hadith discusses the saying of Allahu Akbar, the takbir. The other hadith specifies that he will raise his hands along with it. رفع يديه حتى يحاذي المنكبين. حتى يحاذي المنكبين. He would raise his hands until they reached the level of shoulders, right? The level of his shoulders. وَإِذَا أَرَادَ أَنْ يَرْكَعَ. And this hadith mentions 3 places that the Prophet ﷺ used to raise the hands. The first place, he says when he opened for the salat, number 1, the opening takbir, when we start the salat. The second place, رَفَى يَدَيْهِ حَتَّى يُحَاذِيَ مَنْكِبَيْهِ. That's the description of it, to the shoulders. And then وَإِذَا أَرَادَ أَنْ يَرْكَعَ. And if he wanted to go into ruku', he would raise them again. So that means a person starts the salat, they say the opening dua, they say al-Fatiha, they read a surah. Now it's time to go into the ruku', he will raise the hands again, Allahu Akbar, and go into ruku'. And then he said, وَبَعْدَ مَا يَرْفَعْ رَأْسًا. And he will raise them again after he raised his head. Raised his head from what? From ruku'. So before he went into ruku', he would raise his hands. When he came out of ruku', he would raise them again. So that means that hadith mentions 3 places for the raising of the hands. The opening takbir, before you go into ruku', and after we come out of ruku'. He says, and they go on the knee. The hands go on the knees with the fingers spread. Not like, as he mentions here, which is called tatbiq. It's dislike to put the hands, I would like to show you, stand up and have your hands between your legs. You're in ruku', you're bending over, right? And the person got their hands like this between their legs. But they're bending over, right? The hands should be where? On the knee. What if somebody just bending over and they got their hand in their pocket and they're looking for their phone and they never touch their knees? They're bending over, but they never touch the knee. Is the picture clear? You with me? Or it's not clear? Person's bending over, and instead of putting his hands on the knee, he's fixing his belt, right? He's going down, he's fixing his sock, rolling his pants leg up, right? All kinds of stuff that happens, right? And they never put their hands on the knee. Is the ruku' complete, or is it correct, or does it invalidate the salat? Anybody? It doesn't invalidate it, but they missed out on, of course, following the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. At the least, the ruku', as long as a person bends enough to be able to touch their knee, if they were trying to touch the knee, they can touch it, right? I mean, the person has to bend enough to be able to touch the knee, okay? And that's not saying we shouldn't put our hands on our knees. We're saying if something happened, if there was a situation. So, he says, after that, وَيُسَوِّي ظَهْرَهُ وَرَأْسَهُ بِحِيَالِهِ. In the ruku', that the back should be straight. The back and the head should be level. The back and the head should be at a level, what do you call it? It should be level. Meaning, sometimes you see brothers, I don't know about the sisters, brothers that make a ruku', and they're making ruku' like this. Like almost as if they're going to touch the ground, right? Like if you're stretching, they're going over it like this, right? And sometimes people make a ruku' and they like this. Now, the problem, if you're like this, is in order for the ruku' to be correct, you have to be able to, it has to be a point that a person would be at least able to touch their knees in order for the ruku' to be correct. So if they're too high, then it could possibly invalidate the ruku', that it doesn't count. But if they're too low, right, the ruku', inshallah, is going to count. But still, the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is that the head doesn't drop and the head is not up, but everything is level. Is it possible to do that? Huh? No, it's possible to do that. How do you know if you're doing it or not? How would you know when you go into the ruku' if your back is straight or not? How do you know if you're close? Huh?
Your head?
Just say be praying. You praying. Huh? You touching your knees, but if you touching your knees, does that mean your back is straight? No, it don't necessarily mean your back is straight. Now, we're not saying that if your back ain't straight, that salah is not correct. We're talking about how the Prophet used to pray.
Your arms.
Right? Huh?
Your arms.
What about you?
Should be locked. If they lock.
If your arms lock, it don't necessitate that the back is straight. Right? You would have to what?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's going to do that, but practice. There you go. Practice. Practice. It's the salah. If I want to pray like the Prophet ﷺ prayed, there ain't nothing wrong with looking in the mirror. Is my back straight? How is it supposed to even look? What does it look like for my back and my head to be straight? That, as it says in the hadith, it says, رَأَيْتُ النَّبِيَّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ يُصَلِّي وَكَانَ إِذَا رَكَعَ سَوَّى ظَهْرَهُ حَتَّى لَوْ صُبَّ عَلَيْهِ مَاء اسْتَقَرَّ. His back was so straight that if you were to pour water on his back while he was in ruku', it wouldn't roll off. It would stay there. So in order for me to see, I might have to look. Let me see. This is how I usually do it. You might have to practice and look. If you want to pray as close to the prayer of the Prophet. That don't mean if your back ain't straight and if somebody pour water and it roll off, that don't mean that it's invalid. But this is the description that the Prophet ﷺ, as they said, he would, when he would make a ruku'. That hadith is Ibn Majah, Rawahu Ibn Majah, an Wabisa. Tayyib. He says after that, as now we're in ruku', so now يقول سبحان ربي العظيم. Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, which is the dhikr made in ruku'. And if anybody doesn't know what to say in the ruku', then it's not hard to find out. Because most of these adhkar, they may be 2 words, 3 words. It's not hard, but we just got to put effort to make sure we pray them correctly. Subhana Rabbiya al-Azim. 3 words that we say in ruku'. Subhana Rabbiya al-Azim. Tayyib. He says, وَأَدْنَى الْكَمَالِ ثَلَاث. The most complete, at the least, complete, say it at least 3 times. Right? But you have to say it at least once. It has to be said at least once. Right? It's obligatory to say it once. And if you say it 3, that's even better. And a person may have time to say it 5. Keep it odd, on an odd number. A person may have time to say it 5 times, right? But at the least, in order for the ruku' to be correct, the person has to say it at least 1 time, right? Maybe some people, they play slower. Maybe I got an injury. My back hurt and I can't really move that fast. So by the time I get to the ruku', the imam, I only get to say it once, and then the imam is coming back up, right? I did enough for the salat to be, for the ruku' to be valid. Tayyib. He says, so after that, we went into ruku', we said the dhikr for ruku', Subhana Rabbi al-Azim. Then we do what? ثُمَّ يَرْفَعْ رَأْسَهُ وَيَدَيْهِ. Then we come back up, raising the hands, based on the hadith that we just read, right? The hadith we read mentioned 3 places to raise the hands. The opening takbir, and then before ruku', and then coming out of ruku'. So this is the 3rd place according to that same hadith. So now after we said Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, now we come back out of ruku', raising the hands again, qa'ilan, saying at this time, and now it brings it down to who's going to say this. For the imam, and again the imam, brothers, the imam is the one that leads the salat, not necessarily always the imam of the masjid. Because if any of us go anywhere and there's a bunch of Muslims there, any one of us might have to lead the salat, right? Any one of us might have to lead the salat. And if you have to lead the salat, at that point, you're the imam of the salat. Everybody's following you. Nobody's going to move until you move, right? So the imam, and I'm going to tell you, if you go in the Muslim world, being honest with you, the way we look, I mean, the characteristics and the trying to apply the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, meaning keeping the beard, right? Using henna, having the thobe above the ankles, right? Having the izar above the ankles. These characteristics and these this look, I'm not saying it's not here. I'm telling you, in the Muslim world, this look is emphasized, it's respected, it's on a whole nother level. That means that you're a serious Muslim. That means you're not known for anything except for deen. The way we be walking around looking, and we know, in general, we could look how we want to look, but we be shot out all the way, right? We look good, but we might still, right? He might have all the stuff on, but he's still in the corner, right? It's possible, especially during Ramadan. Everybody trying to clean up. But the look, especially the beard by itself, they would expect you to lead the salah. Just because you got a beard and your throat not dragging, you serious. You serious about the deen, right? So, I'm saying that to say, Imam is not restricted that you have to be a designated person in a specific masjid or center. When you are chosen to lead the salah, you become the Imam. So all of these rules apply for all of us, all of the men, even the young boys, because the boys, we're going to be old. Allah gives us age, we be old. We might have to sit in chairs, and then you, and you, and you, and the young brother, they might have to lead. So we can't lead them in the dark. They're going to be the imams. They're going to be the next imams. So coming up out of the court for the imam, meaning the one who's leading the salah, and the munfarid, and the person praying alone, which is the imam and the person praying alone. Who we not talking about right now? We're not talking about the person following the imam. That's a whole different, right? For the imam and the person praying alone, when they come up and raise their hands out of the Quran, qa'ilan, sami Allahu liman hamida. The imam says it, and the person that's praying alone says it. Sami Allahu liman hamida. As the Prophet ﷺ used to do. Everybody with me? Again, this is 4 words. If we don't know them, we should take time to learn them. It's not long. Sami'a Allah liman hamida. 4 words that we should be able to, we can learn it. Anybody in this room can learn it because we memorize other things without even thinking about it. Right? Sami'a Allahu liman hamida. Murattaban wujuban. Obligatory for the imam and for the person praying by himself. Not the person following the imam when you're praying congregation. طيب. It says after that, وَإِذَا قَامَ رَبَّنَا وَلَكَ الْحَمْدُ مَلْءَ السَّمَاءِ وَمَلْءَ الْأَرْضِ وَمَلْءَ مَا شِئْتَ مِنْ شَيْءٍ بَعْدُ. طيب. So the imam and the one praying alone again, once they come up, they also say, and when you come up, they complete, coming back all the way up, standing up, okay? Standing totally up from ruku'. After they sami Allahu liman hamida, Rabbana wa lakal hamd. Rabbana wa laka alhamd. 4 words. There's no excuse that we should be going through the salah. If we don't know. There's no shyness about not knowing. But it's not hard. It's 4 words. Okay? 4 words coming out of the Quran. Rabbana wa lakal hamd. Tayyib. And then there's a dua mentioned, and there's other adiyah. There are other du'as that are mentioned after that. After Rabbana wa lakal hamd. He mentions one here. Tayyib. This is for who? The imam and the one praying alone. So they say, Sami Allahu liman hamida. Then they say, Rabbana wa lakal hamd. Tayyib. The person praying behind the imam, they don't say, Sami Allahu liman hamida. Like when we hear for the salah, for Maghrib and Isha, and Tarawih, the people praying behind the imam don't say Sami Allahu liman hamida. But we know that's when we come up. As far as the ma'moom, the one following the imam, it says, وَمَأْمُومٌ فِي رَفْئِهِ رَبَّنَا وَلَكَ الْحَمْدِ. We only say رَبَّنَا وَلَكَ الْحَمْدِ. 4 words. We don't say, the one following the imam, praying behind the imam, doesn't say Sami Allahu liman hamida. Sami Allahu liman hamida is only for the person that's leading the salah and the person that's praying alone. The people that are following the imam are going to come up out of the ruku', raising their hands and say, Rabbana wa lakal hamd. Tayyib. Clear? Y'all with me? Tayyib. Now, at this point, we standing back up straight again. So we done made the takbir, made the dua, recited al-Fatiha, recited the surah, made the takbir, went into the ruku', said everything we're supposed to say in the ruku' with the straight back, so that if you pour water on it, the water wouldn't roll off. Came back up, raising the hands. Tayyib. Tayyib. When we come back up and raise the hands, the next question is, where do the hands go when we come out of ruku'?
Difference of opinion in that.
Raising the hands now, do I go back to? They go back where? Wherever they were when you were standing. Oh, no, you can't do that. I mean, you can, because that's what if we say it like that, then where do the hands go when we standing? On the chest. Tell you, some people put them down to the side after ruku', right? Right, come out of the ruku'. Some people put them back on the chest after ruku'. And some people put them down to the side. The ulama, the scholars differ on where the hands go after ruku'. As it says here, وَإِذَا رَفَى الْمُصَلِّ مِنَ الرُّكُوعِ فَإِنْ شَاءَ وَضَعَ يَمِينَهُ عَلَى شِمَالِهِ أَوْ أَرْسَلَهُمَا. If a person chooses to, they can put them on their chest. And if a person chooses, they can put them down to the side. The ulama differ on where the hands should go after ruku'. After ruku'. And it's based on understanding the hadith. Not if the hadith is authentic or not. The understanding of the same hadith. It could be understood. They understand it in more than one way. We're not talking about what's more correct. We're just talking about the options. Tayyib. It says, thumma, after coming up out of the court, standing straight up, and the hands going either on the chest or down to the side. It says, ثُمَّ يَخِبْرُ مُكَبِّرًا سَاجِدًا. يَخِبْرُ مُكَبِّرًا سَاجِدًا. At this point, now a person is going to go into sajda, sujood. طيب, مُكَبِّرًا, with the statement of Allahu Akbar. Okay? Mukabbiran is the statement saying Allahu Akbar. Not necessarily raising the hands, because the hands weren't mentioned in this point, in the hadith. The hands were, you don't raise your hands going into sajda. The hands are raised when we start the salah, before ruku' and after ruku'. Not going into sajda. Going into sajda wasn't mentioned. Okay? So now we're going into sajda, saying Allahu Akbar, and then we go down into sajda. Tayyib. Now the sajda is important, as he says, وَيَضَعَ رُكْبَتَيْهِ ثُمَّ يَدَيْهِ ثُمَّ جَبْهَتَهِ وَأَنْفَهِ. Going down into sajda, the next issue is, when I go down, what hits the ground first? My hands or my knees? As he says here, وَيَضَعَ رُكْبَتَيْهِ. He says you put your knees first. So we go down knees first, right? Then your hands, then the head and the nose. There's another point of khilaf, of different. Some say no, the knees shouldn't go first, that the hands should go first. And they interpret the hadith. They're looking at, the scholars, they're looking at one hadith, they're looking at the same hadith, that could be interpreted more than one way. It depends. So they differ on what should go down first. The author is of the opinion that the knees go first. We're not going to go into the different That's going to be too long. We just want to see the description. So you might see people going down hands first. Some scholars allow that, and they see that to be better and stronger. And some that the knees should touch the ground first, and then the hands, and then the face, the forehead, and the nose. طيب. After that, ويكون على أطراف أصابع رجليه. This is important. Once we're in sajda, it's important to make sure that all of the limbs, everything that we make sajda on, touch the ground. Everybody with me? 7 things should be touching the ground when we go out into sajda. Should be 7 things, right, on the ground. Which is what? Start from 2s first. 2 feet, 2 knees, 2 hands, and the forehead. Now the forehead and the nose is connected. Right? The nose got to touch the ground. The nose has to touch the ground in sajda.
What part of the nose? Is it a specific part?
Any part, any portion of these body limbs has to touch. Of course, the more it all touches, the better. Because a person might make sajda, sometimes you see kids, they make sajda like this. Right? They don't put the palms flat. They might do this. Or somebody's rushing or whatever the case is. As long as the part of the limb touches it, it's enough.
Fingers closed.
But it should be, you didn't get there yet, but it should be that you want to put everything on the ground as much as you can. طيب. And that's a hadith on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. أمر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أن يسجد على 7 أعظم. That the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was commanded to make sajda on 7 body parts. Right? All of the body parts we just mentioned, that hadith is in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. طيب. He says, ويكون في سجوده على أطراف أصابع رجليه ندبا. That the toes should be in sajda, they should be up, they shouldn't be flat. The toes should be up. Everybody with me? This is the foot, the toes should be up. They shouldn't be flat on the ground. Okay? وَيُوَجِّهُهَا إِلَى الْقِبْلَةِ. They're up, number 1, and number 2, they're facing the qibla, the way we pray. Clear? Everybody with me? So that the toes are facing the qibla. So they're not flat, they're up and facing the qibla. You know, your feet, it bends when you go into sajda. So the toes should be facing the qibla. Now what if somebody didn't do that? The toes are touching the ground, but they're not facing the qibla. Huh? Is the salat valid or invalid if the toes are not facing the qibla? It's valid, but it's not as close to the sunnah of the Prophet. Sunnah is that the toes are facing the way that we pray in the qibla. Right? Now a person might have an issue, they can't bend themselves. And that's one thing. But if we have the ability to do this, we should try to do everything and pray just like the Prophet prayed. So the toes should be facing the qibla. Now we in sajda, and this is important, brothers and sisters. Now we in sajda, and he describes the sajda, where yujafi عضديه عن جنبيه وبطنه عن فخذيه وهما عن ساقيه ويفرق ركبتيه. The description of the sajda now is basically that the body we shouldn't be in sajda like this, all tight. The arms should be spread. The legs should be spread. The stomach shouldn't be all crouched up on your knees. You should be spread. يباعد الساجد. يباعد الساجد. That the one making sajda is called Saajid. The one who makes sajda is called Saajid. Saajidin. The one who makes sajda should be spread. Nadban is recommended, it's not obligatory. And as he says here, he says, مَا لَمْ يُؤْذِي جَارَهُ. As long as you're not harming the brother or the sister next to you. You can't harm the person next to you and knock people over because you're doing the sunnah. Islam don't allow that. You can't, no, the sunnah is you spread your arms so when you stand and pray next to people, you're doing all of this, and now everybody on the side is crunched up, right? Because you, mashallah, want to do the sunnah, right? As if the rest of the brothers and sisters in the line don't want to do the sunnah. If we were all able to do it, we would do it. In this case, as long as you're not have to harm anybody, right? Then we pray like that. Even in ruku' and sajda, that you spread. When it's a situation where we're not able to spread like that and harm a person, then we do whatever we're able to do. And that goes for other areas of the salah also. That we don't harm the person next to us in order to do something that is recommended. It's a recommended act. It's not obligatory in sajda to be spread all the way. Of course, it's the best thing to do, but in the case where you're not able to do it, you don't harm the person that's next to you. What time is it? 4 minutes? Thought we ready to stop. It says, also, so the arms in sajda should be spread. The stomach should be spread, meaning you shouldn't be crunched up, whereas your stomach is like on your knees, close to your thighs. You want to be spread as much as possible, which is easier to do when you're praying alone, right? When you're praying alone or you are leading the salah. If you're leading the salah, then all that's easy to do because you don't have to worry about harming anybody next to you, right? Or if you're praying by yourself, you don't have to worry about that either. But when you're praying in a congregation with people, you can't harm people trying to do something that is recommended. Tayyib. He says, and the knees also spread apart when he's in sajda. Tayyib. He says, وَيُكْرَهْ تَرْكُ مُبَاشَرَةُ الْجَبْهَةِ بِالْمُصَلَّى بِلَا عُذْرٍ. He says it's disliked not to put your face on the ground of the prayer area without a valid excuse. Tayyib. Meaning, wherever you're praying is your musalla, right? So say, for example, right now, this is the musalla. So is this like to come and put something on top of this without a valid excuse? Or wherever you're praying at, you should put your face on that. If you're praying outside, if you don't fear it's any dirt, anything that's going to be harmful to you, you should pray on the musalla as it is. That don't mean you can't use a prayer rug. Whatever you're using to pray on, you should put it right on it. You shouldn't put a bunch of things between your face and what you're going to make sajda on. Everybody get it? Whatever you're going to make sajda on, you want your face to touch that. You shouldn't put too many layers between where your face is and the actual ground you're going to make sajda on. You with me? Unless you got a valid excuse, like what? It could be dirty, where you don't want to put your face on it. It could be hot. It gets hot in some places, maybe not here, but like that marble outside the haram, it gets hot. Hot. You might not be able to put your face on it. If there's an excuse to do it, or some people, they have bad allergies, so they can't. If they do it, it's going to be a problem. So if you got an excuse to do it, if there's no excuse, then you shouldn't just put something in between your actual face and where you're going to place your face for the sajda. He says, وَيَقُولُ سُبْحَانَ رَبِّيَ الْأَعْلَى. Again, the dhikr, what we say in sajda is 3 words. If we don't know them, we should try to use this month and these days to learn them. Subhana Rabbiya al-A'la. That's it. And 2 of the words are found already in ruku'. So in ruku', Subhana Rabbiya al-Azim, and now Subhana Rabbiya al-A'la. Tayyib. The adhan is 1 minute. We're going to break with the mu'adhin, y'all. We're going to break with the mu'adhin. Yes.
Is the way that the takbir is, it validates the salat if you leave it off, is that the same with the dhikr?
But that's a whole nother chapter, yeah. That's a whole nother, that's a whole nother chapter. But the dhikr itself, Subhana Rabbil A'la, 3 words and the same thing. It's obligatory to say it at least once. Better to say it 3 times. If you got time, 5 times. If you got more time than that, 7 times. But the obligation is to at least say it one time. The obligation is to say it one time. And we'll stop there. Inshallah. I got some right here. We'll stop there for the salam. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. Man, you want the Latif?
Huh?
The Latif.